episode 4 of Transfer Talk, and this week we are talking about some far more credible and far more concrete stories and links around Leeds United. One that's popped up very recently in the last couple of hours, and the ones that have been talked about in the most detail towards the back end of the week. We're definitely getting to that stage of the transfer window where the stories coming out are starting to get a lot more concrete. We're starting to see the more mainstream media get involved in it, the local media who are very credible getting involved in certain stories. We're starting to see a pattern start to emerge. At least the players that Leeds United are solidly interested in at this moment in time. The transfer window is a long window, so lots can change in that time frame as well. But we've seen some names solidified as interest from Leeds, and we've seen other names kind of just start to float away into the ether as the mainstream media moves towards different targets for Leeds United. But the sources this week have been pretty strong on a couple of signings, and the other ones are transfer rumours that we're going to talk about. The timing on the information is also very interesting in these as well. When it's come out, who it's come out to, and knowing how Leeds like to work in silence internally. The YP, for example, getting the Julian Brandt story is intriguing on its own merits, but we'll talk about that in more detail. Also, the fact that some of these deals, they are free transfers for a couple of them, that will allow Leeds to stretch that summer budget a little bit further, or maybe even invest bigger chunks of money in far more important positions that could have a massive impact for Leeds United in the league next season. And when it comes to the kind of players being linked, I am very much of the opinion I am going to see and wait how the plan plays out over the course of the window. There's no point in reacting to one or two players and thinking, well, he's at the back end of his career. Is he a player the Leeds really want? Till you see the full plan come together. We should know by now not to dismiss players during a transfer window, given what's happened over the last 3 summer transfer windows. So I am very much in the mindset of let's let them do their work and see how this all pans out come the end of the transfer window. But yeah, it's an interesting one. We will see how it pans out. Again, I'm not saying any of these are factually true. I'm not in the know. I'm not a journalist. I'll give you the information around what's out there. I'll give you my opinion on the credibility of that, and then you can make up your own mind. As I always say, I'm not your ma. I'm not going to tell you what to think. It's up to you to decide yourself whether you believe it or not. But we'll go through them. And there's a couple. It's Nico Elvedi who's popped back up again today. Shea Charles, Harry Wilson and Julian Brandt. And give you all the detail on all of them. We will look at the sources on this. We will look at the detail of the players. We will see if they fit Leeds' style of play and if they fit Leeds' strategic transfer model that they've had over the past couple of years. And we can digest that. And then you can form your own opinion on what you think will happen. I'll give you the official source news in terms of the mainstream media, and I'll also give you some of the opinion floating around the ether from the ITK side of it. The more credible ITKs, again, not the lads on X, but the lads that are on the other platforms that have gotten things right in the past. We'll start off first, an interesting one that's returning. It's Nico Elvedi. So 29 years of age, centre-back, right-footed, 6'2", currently plying his trade at Borussia Mönchengladbach, and his contract that he's got at the club runs until the end of next season. So let's put this together. Over 6 foot and high, around about 28, 29 years of age, 1 year left on his contract. Ticks a lot of the recruitment boxes from last summer. There's also a very natural connection to Daniel Farke in this situation. He played under Daniel Farke. He is captain Borussia Dortmund, and there was an awful lot of stories last year linking Leeds with a move for Nico Elvedi. However, someone's already getting ready to say it, he is a right-sided central defender. Now, unless a Sebastian Borneo is moving away from the club, it would make a huge amount of sense. But again, I'll give you the detail. He's at the World Cup right now with Switzerland. So if anything was to happen on that, it's not going to happen for a while, which is maybe why it's an interesting story for people to throw out there. It can have a bit of time before somebody dismisses it further down the line. But to give you the detail on his season last year, he played 33 times in the Bundesliga last season for Borussia Mönchengladbach. No goals, 2 assists, but he is a central defender. Statistics-wise, really interesting. His passing accuracy in his own half is 95%, so he is a defender who can play out from the back. In the opposition's half, his accuracy is 85%, which is very high for any centre-back. So he does like to come out with the ball, carry it into midfield as well. We've seen that is something that Leeds like to do with that back three. Dominant in the air, comfortable in possession as a player, and was once described as one of Europe's best defenders. He's a very solid defender. Ground duel wise, wins 67% of his ground duels and about 56% of his aerial duels. You'll see comparisons to Joe Rodon on your screen right now as well. Not that he's a replacement for Joe Rodon, and though these comparisons that I put up are not as direct replacements, they're just there to give you an idea of what they're like compared to somebody already playing in that position for Leeds. Gladbach finished in a very respectable mid-table position. They were just 9 points off of Europe. They've been kind of operating that 12th to 14th bracket of positions for quite a couple of years, even back when Daniel Farke was managing. It's the best finish actually since Farke was in charge of them. So decent side in a very good league, and we've seen players come from the Bundesliga to Leeds and be very, very comfortable in adapting to life in the Premier League. The source on this one comes from Bild in Germany. Now, Bild is not what it once was. It was one of the most credible sources for football news anywhere in world football. It has gone a little bit more towards the tabloidy side of it. They still have some very good journalists there, so there is still a very solid outlet there. But just to put that caveat out there, it's not exactly what it once was. But they claim that Daniel Farke wants Nico Elvedi at the club. He wanted him last year and didn't get him. The fact that he's got 1 year left on his contract right now means that Leeds can negotiate a better value deal. His market value is in and around €8.5 million. That's about 6.5, 6.7 million pounds-ish. That could be a sticking point from Gladbach's perspective. They're said to want far more than that for him. Leeds obviously won't get involved in any kind of bidding. They were involved if they were interested in him last year. They pulled away because the deal wasn't what they wanted. Elvedi wants to go this summer. He's told Gladbach he wants to go, and if they want to recoup any kind of money for him, then this is the only summer they'll get to sell him, because next season he will go on a free transfer. In fact, he can negotiate a free transfer come January. So there is that. Again, credibility-wise, it's a very legitimate source on this. There is a very obvious Daniel Farke connection, which can be taken two different ways. It can be taken as something that's interesting and probably slightly credible. It can also be taken as an easier link to try and generate some clicks, so that should be taken into consideration. The fee could be a sticking point on this. Leeds will try and negotiate down. Gladbach will want to negotiate up. You'll see where that one goes. And again, it depends if it's a case that Leeds are looking at someone leaving the club from that right central back position. If they are, then maybe Elvedi is the perfect fit. If they're not, it's just putting another right-sided centre back in the position that we've already got. Borneo, Rodon, Bild can play there. James Justin has played there. The left-hand side position is far more important for Leeds this summer. But just something to keep an eye on and look at. Leeds have got a track record of going for a player 1 year and then going back in the following year and going and getting them. That could be something to look into here as well. So from a credibility score perspective, you're probably looking at a 7 out of 10. The reason for a 7, 9, 8 is Bild, as I say, not the publication they once were. Right, next one to talk about is Shea Charles, which has picked up pace over the last couple of days of the week. 22 years of age, central defensive midfielder, 6'2", and currently playing for Southampton. A very strong pedigree, came through the academy system at Manchester City, was their captain at a very young age. Very physical central midfielder, good in the air, high energy, and decent on the ground as well by all accounts. Ranks in the top percentile among midfielders of aerial duels and defensive contributions as a central defensive midfielder. And again, his contract runs until 2027, which is interesting. 1 year left on his deal. Over 6 foot in height. It's ticking 2 of those boxes. 22 makes him younger than Leeds have historically gone for, but there has been that talk from the Athletic piece a while ago that Leeds would look at trying to lower the age profile of the squad this year. Now, some of the players being linked there of the older age group, but the ones they're going to maybe spend some money on, longer term prospects. There is that. Again, Shea Charles falls into that same bracket of, is it a position that Leeds need to fill right now? You've got Ilya Groove, you've got Ethan Ampadu, you've got Anton Stack, and you've got Elton and all playing that defensive midfield role as well. And Ethan Ampadu isn't ever going to get dropped unless he's injured. Now, Shea Charles will be interesting. Ilya Groove's got 1 year left on his deal as well. If Leeds decided to let Groove move on, maybe they go for a younger, taller, more physical option in a Shea Charles, who's definitely got a very high ceiling. So there's a lot to think about from that perspective. But is it a priority position for Leeds right now? I probably don't think it is. Stats-wise, he started 22 games last season for Southampton. Played a lot more, but only started 22. Most of them are the second half of the season, that good run that they went on. 4 goals and 2 assists, but that's not historically his job as a central defensive midfielder. Passing stats, 92% accuracy within his own half and 81% passing accuracy in the opposition half. XG was 3. He scored 4, so he outperformed his XG. He wins about 57% of his ground duels and about 55% of his aerial duels, and has a 4.3 ball recovery rate per game, which is not bad at all. He would be a player that would represent a market opportunity for Leeds. He would have sell-on value. As I say, he's got a very high ceiling. Southampton right now apparently are said to be interested in Hibernian's Josh Mulligan as well, so that could be an obvious replacement for him, and they could be lining up a player if Shea Charles was to leave. And that doesn't mean he's coming to Leeds United, because there is other interest in him. The source on this started off very strong and got stronger. The Daily Mail were the one that broke this through Simon Jones. They said a price tag of around £20 million was needed if Leeds did want to try and pry him away from Southampton. But then the YP got involved in this and they confirmed that Leeds do like the look of Shea Charles, but they labelled it as admiration at this stage and hasn't gone beyond that right now. But the YP do also say that Leeds are monitoring the situation around the player. Manchester United are also said to be interested in him. And as we said in the news during the week, this could be a position that Leeds maybe thought about going maybe a year or two down the road. We might look at Shea Charles, but if someone else gets involved earlier, they might make that move for him quicker. There are some, again, the ITK side of things. And again, this is just for your information. You can do what you want with this. There are some ITKs that believe that this could get done. Some believe that it's further on than it's being let on right now, and there is negotiations going on. That's not being confirmed by anybody credible at this moment in time, but that's the information that's out there. Credibility score-wise on this, probably a solid 7 out of 10, given the fact that it's a Daily Mail. Daily Mail saying Leeds have made a move. YP saying Leeds admire the player, so there's some contradiction there, which just brings the score down a little bit. An interesting one to keep an eye on, though. He is definitely a big physical player and matches an awful lot of what Leeds were trying to do last year. Do they need him? That's the question. Let's talk about Julian Brandt. Right, well, this one came out of nowhere at the end of the week. Very Leedsy type transfer. Julian Brandt, attacking midfielder, 30 years of age, 6'1" in height, currently at Borussia Dortmund, free agent come the end of this month. He has 48 caps for Germany and since 2019 has scored 57 goals and added 70 assists in 307 appearances. He is a very versatile attacker, can play anywhere across the front three positions behind the striker as well as the number 8 as well. Is a very reliable player, not a player that's ever really needed pace to play the way he likes to play, so not really a contributing factor. Intelligent footballer, excellent technique, and as I say, out of contract and a free agent. Now, some people will say his best years are behind him, and that may well be true. However, statistically, when you look at it, it doesn't necessarily play out exactly like that. In 25-26, he got 7 goals and 4 assists in 1,607 minutes of football. He's broken double figures for goals and assists combined in 10 of his last 11 seasons. Johnny Cooper put out a really interesting statistic that should get you a little bit excited. Again, yeah, he's not 27, 28, 29, he's 30, but he's still a very useful player and still has time ahead of him. You look at James Milner playing till he was 40 in the Premier League, so plenty of road to run on this for Julian Brandt. But Johnny Cooper said this: in the last 3 seasons, only Michael Elise and Alejandro Grimaldo have more Bundesliga assists than Julian Brandt, who has 25. His passing accuracy in his own half is 83%, but his passing accuracy in the opposition half is really high. It's 80% as well. So he is a player that can be creative. He's the pass before the assist, if that makes sense. He's the link-up play between that, gets the ball out to a player before a cross goes in for a goal. So he is a player who's very, very involved. You can see his heat maps on the screen as well. His win percentage for duels in the air is 53%. He can be very physical. And again, he is over 6 foot in height, coming from the Bundesliga. And again, we've seen that be a success for Leeds in terms of incomings. The source on this, very, very strong. Started with Graham Smith in the Yorkshire Evening Post, who said that Leeds were exploring a deal for the attacker. Now, he also said there was competition in him, a lot of competition, with at least one Champions League club. So not necessarily an easy deal to get done. And depending on what the player's after, Leeds could already be out of the reckoning if he wants Champions League football, if he wants to play the top end of the team next season, assuming Leeds aren't trying to pitch Leeds being a top end Premier League side next season. The Athletic have picked this up as well, and they've got a couple of anonymous source quotes that are interesting in getting into. One of the sources that they've gotten, they protect the identity of, says that Leeds see him as fitting ideally as one of the 2 players behind the striker in the system that they played last season, and they noted his effectiveness in ball carrying and a player who can drop in and play deeper as well. So it gives Leeds options. We know Daniel Farke likes players who can operate in a couple of different positions, so it ticks a lot of boxes there. He is described as a very, very, very good player who needs a fresh challenge. His biggest issue at Dortmund is maybe he's just been there too long and has gone a little bit stale around the place, and a fresh challenge could be exactly what he needs at this moment in his career. The other clubs that are being mentioned with him from digging around are AS Roma and Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid being the one that you would imagine would be the most interesting one for him to go and play in La Liga. Does he want to play in the Premier League though in his career as well? And that will be a factor there. Credibility-wise, this is huge. This is a 9 out of 10 for credibility in terms of interest in the player, not necessarily in terms of Leeds getting him. That has to play out still. but very solid on this. Again, going to the ITK side of this for your information, there's a few that think that this will actually get done because Leeds don't release information about transfers unless they're pretty close to either being done or are done. The Yorkshire Evening Post's timing on this, if you go back a year ago, Yorkshire Evening Post broke the Lucas Metcha story the morning of the day he signed. So this could be a lot closer, or it may have leaked out and Leeds want to get some information out there to try and control the story. The Athletics detail on this as well, the fact that they've spoken to sources at the club and they haven't denied this, makes it interesting as well. For me personally, I think he'd be an excellent signing. I think he definitely raises the floor. Even if he's a player that doesn't play every minute of every game, he doesn't need to. He doesn't do it at Dortmund. So he is a player that can add more options for Daniel Farke. If you look at Noah Okafor on that left-hand side behind Calvert-Lewin, when he's not been available, Leeds have gone with an extra midfielder and not with an attacker in that position. Brandt can offer you a role there as well. Rotation option as well, more competition for places. And again, he's versatile, so he can cover in other positions as well. So for me, it's an interesting one. I would be delighted if Leeds got that done. I think if you can get a Harry Wilson and a Julian Brandt in for nothing and then spend your money elsewhere, you're raising the floor of the squad already. I think that's a very strong signing. Yeah, his best days are probably behind him, but that doesn't mean he's not got really good days ahead of him as well. So that should be taken into consideration. And then the last one again to talk about is Harry Wilson. And yet we are approaching Ryan Kent territory with Harry Wilson at this stage, but this one does feel like it's coming towards a very natural conclusion one way or the other one. Left-footed right-sided attacker, 29 years of age, 5'8" in height, currently at Fulham, out of contract at the end of this month. 17 Premier League goal contributions last season, which is huge. Leeds are described as desperately needing a player like him to balance out that squad, and that does come from sources within the club as well. It didn't go through last year. Leeds had a deal agreed with the player. It didn't go through. Maybe that helps negotiations this year. Maybe the Welsh lads also contributes to that as well. Again, as I said, Leeds do have a tendency to go back in for players. We'll see if that has any impact on this at all. The source on this, it's been floating around for a while, but Baron Cross and The Athletic said Leeds are actively exploring a deal and is described as one of the areas that Leeds need by club sources. So Leeds want them, they're active. Wages could be a big factor in this as well. Cross believes that Leeds do have an advantage in the current situation. He thinks the Welsh lads do play into this, but there is a lot of strong interest from Aston Villa, Everton and Fulham who've offered him a new deal as well. Each of those clubs can offer him very different things that are very appealing to him. Champions League football at Aston Villa. Everton have got plans on getting into Europe next year and pushing on, and Fulham are building. They have a new manager, it might be a new exciting project. It might be something that he is interested in looking at. So they can all offer something, and so can Leeds. Leeds are building an exciting project on and off the pitch, so that could play into it. In terms of ITKs on this is where this one gets interesting. There are several that believe that not only are Leeds interested in him and negotiating with him, but that this deal is actually done and dusted, that it's been agreed and he will be a Leeds United player. Again, I always say, until you see them in a Leeds United shirt, just, I'm not out here trying to be first with something. I'm just trying to give you the information. You can form your own opinion on it. But there are some people who would have some credibility that are saying that this is all but done. And you could hear an announcement. The timing on that could be interesting as well. Do Leeds wait until the July 1st PSR window to announce this, or do they announce it as done and it will kick in on the 1st of July? That'll be an interesting one. They can do it. They could sign into a contract right now. Contract date starts from July 1st. We've seen plenty of clubs do that already. I think he'd be a very good signing for Leeds United. But just to put it in context, last year Leeds United sources thought that Pajot was done and dusted to the club, and then Marseille got involved and there was some slightly underhanded tactics off the pitch with his family, and that broke down. So things can change with all of these. It's interesting to see that these ones now this week, outside of Nico Elvedi, you're looking at Wilson Charles and you're looking at Julian Brandt, are all from very, very, very credible sources and seem like concrete deals that Leeds United are exploring. Whether they get them done or not, I don't know. But I think if they were to get those three done, it's a strong start to a transfer window. You'll see what Leeds do with the rest of their money this summer. And then again, they do have to sell players as well. We know it's going to happen. So they bring more money in that way as well. So it's an interesting start. They will be two players that would make the squad better in terms of Brandt and Wilson. Shea Charles is an interesting one as well from the future perspective. So yeah, you can let me know what you think down below in the comments. Back Monday morning for the Leeds United news, and I think it's going to start picking up over the next couple of weeks. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks for joining me. If you want to hit subscribe and a like on your way out the door, that'd be massively appreciated. I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.